Minister for Foreign Affairs and the Public Service of the Bahamas.
So, Mr. President, it is an honor and privilege to return to this podium this year. This is my 10th appearance here, and I'm proud to be back to this most important forum, but doubly so because a son of the CARICOM and wider Caribbean region sits as its president. So, Ambassador Dennis Francis, I wish you well, and suffice it to say, the Bahamas stands ready to assist and support. So, the Bahamas National Statistics Institute reported this year in the national census that there are now 399,314 people living in the Bahamas. So let's call that 400,000. We're small, that's clear. We're 700 islands, keys, and reefs, that's clear. We have 4,000 square miles of land and 100,000 square miles of ocean, that's clear. We're therefore a small island developing state, that's very clear. The Prime Minister, Philip Edward Brave Davis, says that the #1 foreign policy issue for the Bahamas is climate change. He's expressed the existential fear we face along with other island peoples, whether in the Atlantic or the Pacific. Will we be climate refugees or will we face a watery grave? Now, tonight, I'm wearing a gift from the people of the Marshall Islands to share our solidarity with those in the Pacific. Having expressed that sentiment in many fora throughout the world, though, over the years that the Prime Minister's been in office, it was actually shocking to us to hear one of our developed nation partners and their position on climate reparations for loss and damage on the part of his country. Their response was that under no circumstances would there be reparations for loss and damage from climate change. Mr. President, small island developing states like the Bahamas have been negotiating for loss and damage for over 30 years. So it begs the question, how much are 399,314 lives worth? The word reparations means so much in another context as well. Millions of African peoples were ripped from the continent of Africa, brought to the West, and worked for free for 200 years. In the British Empire, they were so-called freed in 1834, worked for another 4 years in an apprenticeship scheme for free. The British government paid £20 million to the slavers for the loss of their property. That was then 40% of their national budget. This is, in today's money, £17 billion. And we're advised that the bonds were just paid off in 2015. Yet, not one penny was paid to the slaves or their descendants. And not even an apology is being offered for the moral tragedy which slavery represents. So, no to reparations on climate change and no to reparations on slavery. No, over and over again. The generation of our leaders that came before us, though, did not accept no for an answer. And that is why we are freer today than we were a generation ago. And they were freer than the generation before them. When Michael Manley, the Jamaican Prime Minister, stood at this very podium after his historic victory at the polls in 1972 and demanded a new world international economic order, his call for economic and social justice did not at first succeed, but it has been taken up by his successors who continue this call throughout the Caribbean. Mr. Manley was taking up the call by Marcus Garvey of Jamaica before him and Robert Love of the Bahamas, the generation before Mr. Manley. And Marcus Garvey was taking up the calls of W.E.B. Du Bois and James Weldon Johnson of Bahamian roots before him. Lyndon Pindling, our founding Prime Minister, did not accept no when the Nassau Accords were forged to say, "Let Nelson Mandela go." Clearly then, no is not an acceptable answer to an unfree people. We in this generation take up the call for this generation's call, and Brave Davis and the Bahamas says no is not an acceptable answer. So the Bahamas wants the world to know that whether on reparations for slavery or on climate change, no is not the correct answer. We must use our collective voices to reject the gospel according to no. So long as we have our voices, we will pass our message to the next generation, and so on, until we succeed and justice is served. We do not accept the gospel according to no when it comes to Haiti. As the first black republic and the first independent Caribbean state, Haiti has paid dearly for daring to declare and assert their independence from colonial rule back in 1804. First, they were forced to pay some $20 billion in today's money to be let alone by their former colonial masters. Then they were, in the 20th century, ruled by an invading military for 2 decades that took all the wealth from their treasury and forced the payments back to Washington, D.C. And today, we wonder why the situation is as dire as it is. So the Western world owes Haiti and the Haitian people, and we must fight to help them resolve their issues. The security situation in Haiti today is untenable, and I thank all the governments in both the developed world, the United States and Canada, and in CARICOM for their work in trying to resolve the political and security issues there. I urge the people of Haiti, especially the leaders of Haiti today, to do all that they can to continue to work toward a Haitian-led political settlement, and it will take compromise to do so. Mr. President, this is a humanitarian crisis in our region, which the UN has received many, many humanitarian pledges that can barely meet the on-the-ground humanitarian needs of the Haitian people. We must approve with haste a UN Security Council-backed resolution on a multinational force for Haiti. So first, I'd like to thank the government of Kenya for pledging to lead a multinational force to improve the security issues in Haiti. We in the Bahamas plan to join them, as does Jamaica, and other Caribbean countries have pledged humanitarian support. They, along with all other states, have pledged support to require, but it does require this UNSC resolution to take action. As I said, both Bahamas and Jamaica have pledged troops, other CARICOM states humanitarian support. A geopolitical settlement must also be possible in Cuba. What a magnificent country, with a rich heritage and a smart people who have suffered from economic measures which seem imposed upon them externally grounded in ideology. But if you can do business with Vietnam, there's nothing in logic which prevents doing business with Cuba. The irony of the situation is that money in US dollars is difficult to process across Cuban borders. Yet, 9 or more flights per day leave Miami for Havana and fly back again. And the largest embassy in Havana is that of the United States. We appreciate all the steps that have been taken by the present US administration to revert to the status quo ante to 2016 as a starting point. But the most sensible thing to do is to drop all the restrictions and normalize relations with Cuba post-haste. The continuation of the status quo represents a security problem for the Bahamas. Finally, I wish to repeat a favorite theme of our Prime Minister, and it is this: the pathologies resulting from the asymmetrical relationship between our trading partners in the EU and the Americas on the question of financial services. The OECD and the EU have arrogated unto themselves to be the moral police of the world on issues of taxation. The result is that free trade no longer exists, but a tax process is being imposed by our former colonial masters so that it makes banking so difficult within our domestic spheres, and international trade is made even more difficult. And they've gone one step farther by imposing the requirement now for what they call an electronic travel authority for you to enter their countries, even when they say there's no visa required to enter. The Prime Minister therefore joins other developing states in supporting a UN Convention on Tax which will govern standards on taxation frameworks, including financial services. The OECD cannot declare legitimacy for developing universal outputs while decision-making and membership remain exclusive. So in our view, the UN is the appropriate and universal body to design and build an equitable and inclusive international tax administration architecture with equal-footed representation. So 1973, the Bahamas is 50 years old this year. It's the 10th July 1973, we became independent. And this year, 50 years later, it was a very proud moment for our citizens. So if you go to the Soundlands Primary School in my constituency in Nassau, and you say the words of a popular song, even the little children know the song, and the members of the delegation here today, I'll bet they know it as well. It's a man named Elkin Outen who sang this song. And he says, Nassau is the capital, and the children say Bahamas. Bimini is the gateway, and the children say Bahamas. 1492, Columbus landed, and the children will say back Bahamas. 1973, we were free, Bahamas. And so, happy anniversary, Bahamas. Golden Jubilee, Bahamas. We're proud of our country. I leave the song with you and invite you to come visit us. 8 million people will join us as tourists this year. We are 400,000 strong. Stay and enjoy our beauty. Understand our climate vulnerability. In our work, we ask you to join us to help reverse the tidal rising. God bless you. Thanks for listening, because now, more than ever, we need the United Nations. Thank you. Good night.